Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today I am starting with the sixth lecture on the series of Thanatology. And in this lecture, we'll start with the changes after death. As you know, there are changes which appear after death, and they are grouped as immediate changes, early changes, and late changes. The study of these changes is important from forensic point of view because they appear in a definitive chronological order, and by studying these changes in which state the body is, these changes help in estimation of time since death, which is an important objective of medical legal autopsy. So in this lecture, we'll start studying these changes. As you know, the immediate changes are actually the signs of death. And to know them is important because they help the doctor in certifying death and diagnosing death. Then we'll discuss the early changes. And in this lecture particularly, we'll discuss today the skin changes, what changes appear in the skin at early moments. Then changes in the eye. In eye, there are immediate changes which are because of the loss of innervation. There is loss of reflexes, the corneal reflex, the conjunctival reflex, and pupillary reflex, light reflex. But there are certain other changes which help in diagnosing death. We will see the specific cattle tracking phenomena of the retinal vessels, then TACHES NOIRES phenomena, and then the changes in the disc. So in this topic, we'll discuss these all changes. Okay, thank you. Hello, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I am starting with the lecture 6 on the topic of thanatology. And the learning objectives of this lecture will be that at the end of this lecture, we'll be able to understand what are various changes which appear after death. And these changes, as you know, they are immediate changes, early changes, and late changes. These changes are important to study, as I have told you earlier, that they help us in determining time since death. And the immediate signs or immediate changes are actually the signs of death, and they are important for us to know. Then we'll discuss in this lecture the changes which appear in the skin, which are the immediate and sometimes the early changes also. Then the changes in the eye, immediately there is a loss of innervation and we lose the reflexes, the corneal reflex, the conjunctival reflex, the light reflex. But there are also other changes which are important to know, like cattle tracking phenomena, TACHES NOIRES, and changes in ophthalmic disc. So, starting with the changes which are appearing after death, as the ultimate fate of this human body is that it has to disintegrate into inorganics. The organic matter will disintegrate into inorganics, will become the part of the soil, the solid, liquid, and gases. And so this is the ultimate fate of the human body. This is an Urdu poetry. That means जिंदगी क्या है अनासर में ज़हूर तरतीब, मौत क्या है इन्हीं अज्जा का परेशान होना. That means that what is life? Life is the specific arrangement of these elements of nature, and death is disintegration of these elements. So this poet says like that. So when we classify the changes which appear after death, they are immediate changes, early changes, and late changes. The immediate changes, basically they are the signs of death, and they appear at the time of somatic death, and the knowledge of the signs of death is required in order to differentiate between other conditions like suspended animation. Suspended animation is that the creature, the human or other animals, they are alive, but the vital functions are at so low ebb that normal clinical methods are unable to perceive them. So that is suspended animation. The signs of death, moreover, they pursues an estimation of the time of death, at which time the death has occurred, and this may be important in relation to investigation of death, medical legal investigation of death. The police will not only wish to know that the victim is dead, but also how long he or she is dead. And the estimation of time since death is rationally one of the most difficult and sometimes inaccurate technique in forensic pathology. No single test is dependable, and all the possible evidences must be correlated to try to arrive at some sensible time bracket, which is called as bracket of probability, within which the death could have occurred. We cannot tell that this soma stopped breathing at 2 hours, 10 seconds, and 20 minutes, like that. But we give a probable bracket. As we know, these changes appear in a chronological order, and we give that bracket. They help the police to fit in that bracket if possible. So we cannot pinpoint the time of death if it is not a hospital case. In hospital, definitely the doctors are going to certify and they know the time of death. But when it is a homicidal case outside premises, then we give a bracket of probability. So it gives a range from an earliest to the latest time of the occurrence of death. By studying in which state a particular change which is appearing after death the body is in, and from that we estimate the time since death. Now, starting with the immediate changes, which are the immediate signs we have discussed in the previous lectures when we were discussing the diagnosis of death, but this is just a review again. These changes which are noticed at the time of death, they appear within a few minutes, and mainly they are the traditional signs of death. And on these signs, usually the diagnosis of death is made. Moreover, they also exclude the conditions like suspended animation or apparent death. The immediate first change is seen, that is primary flaccidity. That immediately the limbs will fall, the head will turn to side, or immediate loss of power in the muscles. That is primary flaccidity, and the cause of primary flaccidity is loss of innervation, loss of nerve supply, that is cessation of central nervous system functions. And this happens that at the time of the death, muscles relax and lose their natural tone, which results in insensibility and loss of voluntary power to move. This is though regarding when we are certifying the signs of death, this is not a specific sign of death. The jaw drops, the chest collapses, limbs become flaccid, and relaxation of the flaccid muscles make the person to look younger. The iris assumes a mid position. The sphincters relax. The wounds inflicted in this stage will not gape as in antemortem wounds because now they are postmortem wounds and they will not show the vital reaction of contraction in the muscle. Then there will be cessation of circulation and which is confirmed finally. There are other methods, but finally it is confirmed with ECG. Auscultation, palpation, and other methods are, but finally it is confirmed with ECG. No ECG and straight isoelectric line shows no cardiac activity. And loss of innervation, which is the first sign, and this loss of cardiac activity, these are one of the sure signs of death. Cessation of neuronal activity, other that neurons which are the sensory part of the brain, and a flat EEG will be obtained in that state. Cessation of respiration or apnea. We can diagnose with the help of auscultation, auscultating the chest area, the trachea, the cessation of respiration can be established. Now the skin changes which appear at the time of death and in early period of death. Skin loses its elasticity. The luster is lost. The lips become dark in color due to drying. But in cases of hypoxic death, the color of mouth and lips remains red or blue. They become cyanotic, or because of certain poisons, they may become reddish, congested. The other changes in the color of the skin, they are also sometimes important. As soon as the circulation stops, blood is drained from the capillaries and venules of the skin, and the skin goes pale, especially on the non-dependent areas. But this is not constant feature at the death where there is prolonged agonal period. Pallor is not seen, rather it becomes bluish or cyanotic in asphyxial deaths. In carbon monoxide poison and in death due to hypothermia, the face is pink, and this happens because in carbon monoxide poisoning, as carbon monoxide has many hundreds times more affinity than the oxygen, and the carbon monoxide is not a respiratory oxygen, a respiratory gas to help in metabolism. So the oxygen is there, but it is not being utilized. It is present in the circulation. Similarly, in hypothermia, because of the lower temperature, the metabolism is not occurring because for metabolism an optimum temperature is required. So in that condition, hypothermia also, the oxygen is there, but because of the decreased temperature, the metabolism is not going on. So the skin in these conditions appear pink. Now the eye changes. At death, there is a eyeball, they stare vacantly. They are not responding, not moving. and there is bilateral fixed dilated pupils. Pupils do not respond to light and absence of light reflex is seen, but it reacts to drugs for 1 hour. So fixed dilated pupil means that pupils remain dilated by throwing the light in them. They do not constrict, they do not react to light. Corneal reflex is gone. There is haziness or cloudiness of cornea within 10 minutes after that. If the eyes are open, atmosphere is dry. However, this haziness can be removed by placing a few drops of water and this cloudiness can be covered. Then other eye changes, when we immediately do the ophthalmoscopy, there is a specific phenomena seen which is cattle tracking. As the cattle are tracking in single line. So the retinal vessel, when you do the ophthalmoscopy, immediately the retinal vessel become dotted or segmented. That is, the column of blood is segmented. It reveals stasis of blood. This tells that the blood has stopped moving, and this fragmentation or segmentation of blood vessels is known as cattle tracking. And this phenomena can be observed within 10 seconds after death in approximately 85% of the cases. So this is a photograph of the ophthalmoscopy, and you can see the dotted lines of the blood column. Then the other change is TACHES NOIRES. TACHES NOIRES, this appears on SCLERA within 3 hours of the eye when they remained open. A brownish black discoloration on the sclera due to deposition of the cellular debris and dust. And they appear as a broad line on the sclera. That's how it can be seen. The ophthalmic disc become pale. The pupils which were dilated, fixed dilated initially, but after development of rigor mortis, they become constricted but fixed. Pupils may be unequal in narcotic poisoning. Potassium content of the vitreous humor, it rises steadily. Tone of the eyeball is lost, and the intraocular pressure falls to 0 within 2 hours. Normal is 20 to 22 millimeter of mercury, it falls to 0. So in this lecture, we have discussed the changes which appear after death. And these changes are immediate, early, and late. And we have understood that these changes help us in estimation time since death. And immediate changes are actually the signs of death or certification of death. And we have understood that there are certain changes which appear in skin after death. We have discussed and understood the changes which appear in eye, the immediate changes and the other changes. Loss of reflexes, corneal reflex, light reflex. And there are specific phenomena, the cattle tracking phenomena, which is seen in the eyes, and TACHES NOIRES, and changes in the ophthalmic disc. Thank you very much. Take care. Allah Hafiz.